Nameless Therein response video by Interzone Analysis. This is a response to my The Absolute State of the Order of Nine Angles ONA/O9A video that I made recently that caused a little bit of controversy. And Nameless Therein came into the picture along with a lot of other people. Nameless Therein is one of the most prominent artists associated with the Order of Nine Angles, outside of people like Richard Malt. He is also the most famous musician associated. All the ONA chants and vocals have been produced fantastically, and I have been a little bit harsh on Nameless Therein in the past due to him jumping ship from the Order of Nine Angles, but that was unfair, as I did not quite know the circumstances behind what happened, and I assumed him to be a bit of an amoral opportunist, and for that I do apologize, as he has written some extensive and quite amazing input on the future of the Order of Nine Angles and some of his perspective. Now, Nameless, I apologize that I have not asked your permission to make a video like this, but given that you put this out publicly, I feel that your input is highly needed and also relevant and brilliant. So, as typing a response was going to be massive, as Nameless has a habit of writing extensively, and he has done so, and for that I am appreciative. However, I thought a video response might be more apt for the circumstances. And also a olive branch, and yeah, I apologize for calling you a cunt. There was a bit of a misunderstanding. Anyway, I will get into what Nameless says in a moment. I just thought it apt as an introduction, and to also provide something a little bit more cultured than my usual for the moment. Okay, can't help it. I'm a musician and very unfulfilled in my musical pursuits and want any excuse. That is just a random improvisation. That is not a composition by Nameless Therein nor Richard Malt / Christos Beast. Oh, one thing before I get into this regarding Richard Malt or Christos Beast. I have some information, and I will be making a video very soon regarding some of the esoteric meanings behind certain things that some people might not be aware of due to a mixture of contacts and also things I can't go into. Famous for his music, the Sinister Tarot. But one thing I want to make clear, they might be the same person, but Richard Malt and Christos Beast are two very different entities. Christos Beast is who he was when he was in the ONA. Then Richard Malt is who he became essentially post-ONA. It's under his own name, but Richard Malt's music in particular under his real name is unbelievably sophisticated with amazing I mean it all goes back to the ONA anyway, but it transcends it, and that is a theme of which I keep bringing up since my absolute state of the ordinary angles video, and part of the point, which is transcending the current state of the ONA in a sense. Now I'm going to read what Nameless Therein has written. Now, how do I know it's Nameless Therein? People's writing style, also he's put references into things and communications that I've had with him previously, and a whole plethora of other reasons. So anyway, I'll let the man speak for himself, though with my voice. I'm sorry, Nameless, but has to be done. Now, alright, so NT, Nameless Therein, to add a way too long closing comment to what I said in my last comment regarding a rebrand of the ONA, yes, that is one option moving forward, but I think there are several obstacles that should be taken into consideration if attempting to do this. 1. Who will do the rebranding? It seems to me that without some kind of consensus, agreement, or cooperation on a majority level, whatever that means, we may see few people attempt their own rebrand while trying to get others on board. But doing so may mean business as usual, new meaningless and unnecessary power struggles will once again emerge as ego-driven quests for personal glory cause even more disagreement, stresses. Oh my god, I have dyslexia clinically. It's not just me being hyperbolic, so forgive me, I'm not even going to bother trying to pronounce that word. And infighting until, quote, newcomers, end quote, now even more divided and confused than ever, will be lost, about which rebrand to, quote, choose. They and the general population will inevitably lose interest in the ONA proper and its mutant offspring rebrands altogether, or at least until, and after some time has passed, some new person or persons attempts to revive the old, quote, ONA brand. Rinse and repeat. So option 1, that's very apt. Analysis. Number 2, how will those attempting a rebrand achieve consensus, agreement, or cooperation on a majority level in order to successfully implement a rebrand and keep it alive? For a rebrand to succeed, I think it's necessary for it to offer something new and interesting, whether it in magic, music, art, literature, whatever. Groups much larger, more coordinated, and with more resources than the ONA have failed at this in several respects, and we haven't seen much of it in the ONA in some time, in my opinion. Something I agree with completely there, Nameless. The absolute lack of art, literature, culture, and music has been a massive detriment. The likelihood of a single person or small group of people having the talent, time, energy, and resources to do so on their own, with or without the few followers they're likely to gain, seems slim to me. And that's an optimistic assessment. Even if succeeded for a time, as long as some type of behavior we see now continues: hostility, criticism, infighting, lying, deception, cowardice, ego-driven childishness, etc., either internally among followers, adherents, associates, whatever, or externally among the media and public. I don't think that person or persons or their rebound will last in any meaningful way for more than a decade or two. Now, a prophecy ONA. Things are not usually seen in the perspective of, a few months or a few years. It's usually decades or centuries, if you want to be really in depth. Anyway, 3. In addition to cooperation and some kind of consensus, said individuals would probably have to be very well liked, respected, and popular among their peers for a rebound to succeed. That's not an insurmountable task, but with the infighting, criticism, general hostility, and arrogance surrounding much of the current ONA, there would need to be some big changes, and sooner rather than later, for a rebrand to gain enough traction to even make it off the ground. 4. An alternative along the lines of what I think you suggested, Interzone, would be to rebrand the ONA by simply changing its name in order to break off from the media and the public's association of it with undesired and reprehensible groups and individuals, pedophiles, criminals, those advocating violence, etc., while still preserving some of the worthwhile foundations of the original ONA, the Sevenfold Way, Rwanda, esoteric chant, or whatever one sees as worth preserving and building upon. That's essentially one of the main points I tried to make with the video. Keep it secret. Let the idiots have their ONA, and just use obscurantism to change the vernacular, essentially. Now, Nameless has thought about this a lot because he been directly involved with the ONA for a very long time, jumped ship. However, I may have been a little bit overcritical of him as his passion for the ONA, and after first-hand experience with the frustration and absolute nightmare that is trying to do anything with people associated in any positive or creative way without it ending in absolute destruction and chaos and suffering, despite how worthwhile it can be, is incredibly frustrating. So to go back to Nameless, one problem is because of the public opinion of the ONA. There have been several rebrand attempts already, and I know about pretty much all of these, and these didn't make much difference in terms of the usual lies, slander, rumors, heresy, and the like from the media / public about the ONA, and some of these media associated with it, regardless of how admirably those associate, including myself, tried to convince the public otherwise. There's one problem in your strategy, Nameless, that I think needs to be addressed. There is no way in hell the ONA will ever be publicly acceptable. No matter what one does, it will always have the sensational bullshit associated with it. but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. A disconnect from that. There used to be in neo-Nazi punk scenes, there were the skinheads and then there were the suede heads, who were not Nazis, but they were part of the skinhead culture. And yeah, there was a lot of fighting and stuff, but you know, they actually made a impactful movement. So this is possible. Alright, going back to Nameless. For associating, including myself, tried to convince the public otherwise, yet you can't convince the public otherwise. I've been trying to too, and I still get the same bullshit of people threatening to call ASIS and ASIO on me, even though you can't because they don't give a fuck. And trust me, they're well aware of my existence. Point being, people can't seem to differentiate between what I do and 764, Temple of Blood, TOBV, and these reprehensible groups, and me trying to just explain what's been going on with the actual ONA from its foundations and splinter cell groups within a specific UK collective, which is where the entire organization branched from. Point being, I've made an impact in making the ONA quote boring, which is good. I want to make it boring because it is boring to the majority of people. It's not sensational. It has elements that are sensational. However, it is incredibly sophisticated, complex, elitist, and aristocratic. So, you know, it's going to be pretentious. But there's no point trying to convince the general public that that's something yeah. Alright, so back to Nameless. So, of how I don't really use associates clear myself, blah blah. 2 questions to consider with that in mind are: what would prevent the media/public public from associating the same violent, degenerate, and undesired groups/individuals with the new rebrand, and what would prevent the media/public public from seeing any rebrand as synonymous with the ONA, thereby layering the same attacks against it? If instead one tried to take the rebrand quote underground, where the quote old ways or traditions were practiced more or less in secret on a person-to-person basis, which is how it was done in the beginning to keep special service, MI5 essentially, out. As I said in my video giving some historical context, the reason the ONA is designed the way it is, Labyrinth of Mythologicos and all that bullshit, is because of MI5 infiltrating every single movement in the UK circa 1970s to the 1990s. Doesn't matter if you were protesting a council estate being built, they will infiltrate you back then. Now, the intelligence services infiltration and Asian provocateurs are literally essentially the main threat to the ONA and any rebrand, in my opinion, far more than the media can ever be. And going back to Nameless, by those who really do practice and live them as a spiritual quest and / or way of life, which in my experience is how things have been for some time anyway, at least to some extent, and beyond the public imageless veneer of the ONA, whether on the internet or elsewhere, there are several other problems to consider. Now, he just laid out something very important, but because I don't want this video to be too long, the way he's talking about how the ONA essentially operates person-to-person basis and all that kind of stuff is backing up my experience big time before splintering into other groups. Anyway, other collectives, I should say. There are several problems to consider. How the Rebound and its associates avoid repeating the history and trajectory of the ONA, going underground, practicing the traditions of... Oh yeah, I already read that part. If I'm not mistaken, at least, practice, and regardless of the motivation behind the creation, what's to prevent the type of rebrand from repeating the same types of mistakes and problems we see now? There were several talented, capable, and competent individuals associated with the ONA's early development, such as Mr. Beast, i.e. Crystal Beast / Richard Malt. We will see the same, or at least a comparable level of capability and competency necessary for a rebrand success and survival. Again, that seems unlikely unless some of the above problems are addressed. The same applies to any types of rebrands described above. 5. Believe it or not, my goal was option 5. Skipping ahead. 5. Another option is to continue without explicitly rebranding, meaning changing the name of the ONA or creating new groups with new names that adapt or incorporate elements of it in some way, but instead attempt to constructively and cooperatively build upon the original brand, not usurping it from personal gain, but contributing something new to it, giving it something back. The goal there would be to try to accomplish the same thing as a rebrand, breaking away from those very harmful people and groups who have come to be associated with it, while building upon the original brand and without changing the name. Now, Interzone, I think you referred to that type of usurping of personal gain as, quote, amoral opportunism. I admit I'm not perfect and I have fallen victim to that myself at times, convincing myself that what I was doing was motivated by a quest for the greater good, when sometimes it was just for personal recognition. You made a similar point about that type of thing towards the end of your video here, which I appreciated and thought was a good one. Thank you for not getting pissed off at me about calling you an amoral opportunist. When I said that, I did not have the full context of your situation, and either way, you have obviously grown as an individual to even take that into consideration. Anyway, I may be completely wrong, but I think at some point in its history, regardless of the motivations behind the creation, one of the purposes of the ONA was to see it evolve and in creative and productive ways. I think those who have seriously lived this philosophy, its tradition, and or practiced its early systems of magic found a deeper connection to self, nature, spirit, along with the eventual shedding of said systems. In some cases, I think of those people saw and continue to see the value in that type of evolution of the ONA, again, regardless of what its original purpose may or may not have been. Nameless, you just laid out essentially one of the biggest secrets within the ONA, and that is the fact that it is an evolutionary system. That's why they go on about Ibn Khaldun's Muttaqin the cycles of Asopia, how every organization has a certain level of steep incline in its history, and then a slow decline and death, and then from the ashes something new arises and is better. The point of the ONA is to fucking transcend the ONA. Hence why Christos Beast became Richard Malt. This is another reason why I know this is NT, Nameless Therein. I mean, not that this is that secret, but this is the ultimate goal. I am greatly appreciative of someone laying it out like that. And Richard Malt is a perfect example of someone who's successfully done this. Now, believe it or not, my goal was option 5. Maybe it was naive, even futile, especially given the current state of things, the ONA's public image, the aforesaid associations with horrible groups and people, along with the irreparable harm done by giving free rein to the authority of individual judgment, while paradoxically and dogmatically, that's another issue, holding it as canonical and absolute, e.g. you must adhere to the authority of individual judgment, which is idiotic, and which I think underwent something similar in the evolution and fate of the Labyrinthos Mythologicos. As described in my previous comment, the most challenging, previous comment, option 5 presents a nebula of problems to solve and overcome, each more insurmountable than the next, some of which I described above. To me, option 5 and is the most difficult to achieve, the most challenging, and the least likely to succeed, which was partially why I fought so hard for it prior to withdrawing from the Order of Nine Angles. Even having left, did not want to watch it die or go the way of options 1 to 4. When I was involved with the ONA, a lot of people were pushing for a rebrand. Theoretically, rationally, and ethically, I understood why, and I fought very hard to break away from the types of horrible individuals and groups mentioned above. And he did. I know he did, by the way, to give him credit. I tried to steer the narrative towards something good, honest, authentic, constructive, something that could help other people rather than harm them. Instinctually, I never felt right about a rebrand, despite attempting and failing at one myself. For me, it felt like giving up. I felt there was something valuable and beautiful in some of the early ONA material, its systems of magic and chant, and his knowledge and use of chant, esoteric chant, within the context of the ONA is incredible, and being the main focus of his work. And some of its traditions, I can never pronounce this, and I never will. Round Thwana, which is empathetic magic, usually associated with women, anyway, tradition, which was what I was interested in and practiced in my own way prior to withdrawing and later rebranding. I pushed for option 5 with those things in mind, but it did not succeed, and that failure has weighed heavily on me, causing deep suffering. Lastly, and I'm surprised most people don't suspect this immediately and instinctually, there's always the possibility that rebranding and pushing so hard for one within the ONA is just a cover for a deep intelligence or esoteric strategy to end the ONA, redirect it to a hidden purpose or purposes, or achieve some other nefarious goals. I'm not accusing you of that, Interzone, as you may be sincere in advocating what you said in this video, but it's something I would caution others to keep in mind moving forward. Also, very good advice. I'm always accused of being a spook. I suppose the takeaway from this can be summed up in something I wrote previously in a post-article, a quote from the HBO show Rome I heard several years ago. Quote, "You may call a cat a fish, but it will not swim." I've seen cats swim. I've thrown one in the water and it swam very quickly, like ran on the water. Anyway, sorry. That said, I hope that fish doesn't drown and that the above-mentioned obstacles can be overcome, paving the way for something honest, true, noble and powerful, something that can do good rather than harm in the world. These are my thoughts. For what they're worth, good luck everyone. Nameless Therein. Now, I really appreciated this input. The reason I've turned this into a video is because it's massive. Absolutely massive. And, alright. If my mouse doesn't die, let's see. Now, he made another comment that I did not see because YouTube's comments are very annoying sometimes. Now, Nameless said, now I haven't actually read this yet because I just saw this, especially now. So, he continues with, well, believe it or not, and I know this sounds suspicious, especially given something I just wrote, Uncle Google locked my other account at axis-abraxas. I did have a few things I wanted to add to the comment made under that account, so I'm going to use this one for the time being. I am aware that posting under a separate account here will probably be perceived just another sort of deception I described, but I don't care. I give my word that I'm not trying to deceive anyone. I just want to say my piece and move on. Take that as you will. It's the truth. Now, I know things, and Nameless, I'm not going to tell you how. I'm not going to say what they are, but I have people that have kept tabs on you because I do this. I get people to keep tabs on fucking everyone. Oh fuck, there you are too, axis-abraxas. 6 days ago. Sorry, I didn't see that, didn't know it was you. I assumed, yeah, my notifications and comments are not good. Anyway, Nameless has been very genuine to what I know about his character post ONA from people that know him, that I know. This is all tracking very well. Anyway, some thoughts below about what I said previously regarding the never-ending deception, lying, omission, and insincerity. I mentioned in my last comment. Okay, I'm going to have to go down to the comment below because I didn't realize. I tried finding this account, but I couldn't. Google is weird, and YouTube is a nightmare to navigate sometimes. Alright, so instant analysis regarding your comment in this video about having had contact with Nameless Therein. Give my word, best of my knowledge, I never had contact. Did you, or any contact with you whatsoever, excluding this comment message, of course. Oh yeah, sorry about this. Yeah, I did. Look, when he jumped ship, this is me talking shit about Nameless Therein because I got really pissed off at somebody that I was thought it was an insight role overplaying my hand, playing with the big boys when still an adept. I told him I was a journalist, and then he called me a naive idiot. I assure you that was not me who did that or said those things to you. No, I managed to get access to my old email account that got compromised. Don't worry, it didn't get compromised in a sense where any of the emails were compromised. It's just I can't go into it. Anyway, with regards to that, it was, I can't tell you who that was. I've only worked out now. It was somebody associated with certain groups, ONA.org, Fenrir, all that shit, and claiming association with you. But we assumed it to be you. However, I think in hindsight now, it was one of your associates. So, yeah. Given what I know about your character and the way you write, you're not as pretentious or as much of a... Well, you're not really a absolute cunt, which is what this individual was. At least during the context of that time. Anyway, I don't know why someone would impersonate me in order to wage another stupid and pointless strategy, and to what end, but I'll tell you this. I mean, this is just how this shit works. People impersonate everyone. The only way to know is by knowing the individual and people associated with the individual, how they write, who they're associated with. So yeah, I fucked up on this one. Probably wasn't you. It was somebody associated with people, associated with you, that was annoyed that I didn't realize that they were famous. Big problem I keep getting in life. And they were annoyed that I didn't respect ONA.org, Fenrir, any of that shit. Anyway, I don't know why someone lying, omission, and insincerity, years of it as far as the eye could see, along with the lasting words they left that eventually broke my spirit and my heart and caused me to walk out the door. So yeah, it was exactly that type of never-ending deception, lying, omission, and insincerity, years of it as far as the eye can see, along with that lasting wounds they left that eventually broke my spirit and my heart, that caused me to walk out the door. And trust me, the reason I made that fucking video on the absolute said the Order of Nine Angles, which has caused me to be mass hacked again by pissed off Niners giving my fucking information to 764 pedophile networks and shit like that again. Just the same usual fucking bullshit. It is a nightmare. It is a fucking nightmare. This is why Richard Mott's a fucking hermit. And why all the talented people and the people who actually know what they're fucking talking about are being pushed aside by scheming, dishonorable, conniving cunts with no fucking talent, power tripping, and absolutely nothing to offer other than their own self-interest, which amounts to nothing other than the destruction of themselves in the end, because they're fucking idiots too. And all this lying, deception, all this bullshit, insincerity, yeah, this character testing and all that shit within the ONA. But it's usually done in the context of actually building up somebody, rather than fucking destroying them before they have a chance to even get anywhere. And the absolute fucking arrogance, mind games, and little disagreements, and it's all done in the most... It's a dance. It is a dance. You have to be very, very disconnected. And you can't trust anybody. And that's the problem. There is... Because as influential as David Myatt is, his works on suspicion, duels with deadly weapons, all that kind of stuff, and honor and gentlemanly conduct, sadly is something that is completely disregarded within the modern ONA. And there are far, far worse, far more nefarious and fucked up situations going on that, and even I've gone into internally. It's essentially a war over this by people who care, and sadly, because of how it's designed, people like myself and Nameless, who actually have a lot more in common than we might think, and started off from the beginning, well, on my end, because Nameless disappeared, but I had animosity towards him due to somebody doing essentially an insight role and impersonating him. And even worse, this person, I can't give you their fucking contact. You'll know who they are because they're directly associated with groups that have published your music, essentially. And they're a cunt. They're an absolute prick. And they're not you. They're not you. But at that time, my contacts I didn't have contacts that were in direct contact with you they all assumed it was you too, whereas down the line, and because I couldn't show anyone other than saying a few quotes, that also made it difficult. However, and this isn't booze, this is just kombucha. Anyway, this is the fucking problem. Before a possible ally could be made, I was already in a state of absolute, brushing him off. And then I put aside his talent until I got context into people that actually know Nameless and his circumstances and why. And then I felt quite bad, even though I still assumed that person to be him, and yeah, so it's a nightmare. And so you end up having enemies with people that you're not even actually acquainted with, so you start off the bat by design adversarial. Nameless had the maturity to not have engaged, but this is at the very beginning, and literally everyone fucking contacted me, which is why I know people who know you. But it took a bit of time for me to navigate this, and I omitted a few mistakes I had made, and this being one of them. Now I will end with a few closing thoughts. This is Nameless. When I found the ONA and did my initiation close to a decade ago, the old-fashioned way, following the instructions in a hermetic ritual self-initiation in Naos, I poured everything I had into it. Everything that led me to the ONA through it involved real sacrifice, blood and trauma, several suicides, near-death experiences, deep suffering, meaningful suffering, much like yourself. I don't know what I expect to find, maybe resolution or closure for the trauma I experienced, a desire to share the beauty of what I discovered in those experiences, or maybe just confirmation, even from a single person who understood that it wasn't all for nothing. I don't know if I found it, and I don't know if I ever will. As I wrote before my withdrawal from the ONA, quote, through it all I stand with a wound that lays no claim to truth, gods, or other worlds, but offers its message in this one. In pain and majesty, let my rent spirit guide this gift on your path to hell, and as desire gives way to death, let what was never mine give now become your own hope. Become your own hope prevails. I hope that you find what you're looking for into zone, and I apologize if the words and actions of the above mentioned individual caused you any distress or harm. God only knows how much they have for me. Best of luck in your recovery and future endeavors. Thank you. You see, Nameless knows shit about me that is not public. That's another reason I know this is Nameless. I won't go into what that is. Anyway, thank you for the individual who softened my stance on Nameless, which was a labyrinth of mythologicos spook bullshit thing that started a whole fucking feud of me feuding with Nameless in a one-way feud about nothing. At least my feud with Jay Hanrahan was a two-way street of some sort, and it had a resolution. This one was just manufactured by pieces of shit from ONA.org and Fenrir magazine and other pathetic, embarrassing websites, and in the midst of all that pretentiousness and fucking stupid bullshit is nothing, whereas Nameless has given an absolutely amazing fucking perspective on this entire thing, an insider perspective that is so fucking valuable outside of my own. This is somebody who has spent more than a decade in the ONA, and unlike what some people might say, oh, he just makes some fucking chants. No, he's actually creating shit and doing things. What the fuck are you doing? Nothing, other than running around trying. Well, I won't go into the stupid sectarian bullshit and that I have to fucking deal with. Anyway, I appreciate this. I'll be looking for interzone. And for me, best of luck with your recovery and future endeavors. With that, I retire back from whence I came. Nameless Therein. P.S. Listen to your guitar recordings on your channel. Very cool, man. You're a good guitarist. Keep making music. That was all I wanted to do here from the beginning. Make some cool fucking tunes. And worship Satan, huh? I don't know how things got so complicated from that simple purpose. Oh well, anyway, take it easy. Well, yeah, that's all I ever wanted to fucking do too. Back when I was in my Despel Amiga French avant-garde, black metal fucking days, all I wanted to do was make music on metaphysical Satanism from the perspective of Heidegger and fucking and Russian existentialists, and it just turned into a fucking nightmare. And then I came back to it after my David Myatt journey that I condensed into 10 years instead of 40, and ended up back in this quote Satanist movement, which now doesn't even mention Satanism. Has some LHP stuff. It's cosmic. It's actually more Lovecraftian than anything else. Anyway, to end, and also thank you very much. I didn't read this comment because I couldn't find it until now. Thank you. That's all I want to do. I don't want to be doing this and fighting this war, essentially. There goes this. Now, well, believe it or not, and so I finished with this. Did have a few things I wanted to add to the comment made under that account regarding the never-ending deception lying missions I mentioned in the last comment. There's a difference between attempting to constructively catalyze growth in an individual by encouraging them to figure things out for themselves through an almost mythic and heroic narrative of obstacles, ordeals, and the use of their higher faculties as they move into their authentic self, what I take to be the original idea behind the Labyrinthos Mythologicos. Yes, it is fucking hell. I haven't read this comment either, this is the last one, but what I am laying out here is the ONA, for fuck's sake. Nameless has given a amazing analysis versus blatantly lying, manipulating, and deceiving people in order to achieve a personal end. In my opinion, the Labyrinthos Mythologicus was an interesting idea in theory in the early days of the ONA, but lost its viability when people took it upon themselves to employ the above-mentioned tactics to aid what, in the grand scheme of things, had been termed sinister strategy. To me, that seems to have long since de-evolved into an ego-driven exercise in arrogance and cowardice. Ego-driven because the spotlight of personal recognition and power began to eclipse what I take to be the original goal of the Labyrinthos Mythologicos, especially when things moved to the internet. Oh yeah, and that's when everything went to shit big time. I wish I could have known it before that. Arrogance because of the attempting to force self-actualization in another person, which isn't possible in my opinion, in the name of sinister strategy, and almost always at the expense of all parties involved, has little to do with collective or individual growth. In my experience, it's usually motivated by fear, insecurity, and need to control, and presupposes that someone is qualified to make certain decisions for other people without their consent, even if doing so causes significant harm to them, as long as the end justifies the means. And cowardice because individuals who engage in this type of behavior and approve of it in the ONA, behavior that can be significant and lasting suffering, in the recipients of it, mostly do so out of sight on the internet with little fear of consequence until the tables are reversed and they experience someone else doing it to them with real and serious consequences. This is a fucking lesson that people should take to heart. Trust me on this one. As long as people continue to confuse the former, what I described as the original aim of the Labyrinthos Mythologicus, with its goal of spiritual and psychological transformation, with the latter using deception, lying and manipulation to achieve a personal end in the name of collective change. It doesn't matter what anyone does to try and save face here, whatever rebranding the ONA or continuing to build upon its original foundations, I think it's doomed to fail. Nameless Therein, very passionate there, very apt. Take this to heart, and Niners, before you shut this down. The amount of fucking contacts I have and the amount of people that I know associated, directly involved with the ONA, some from the 1970s, if not earlier, though 1970s is the earlier. Anyway, trust me when I say he is giving a very apt perspective and overview of the situation. So much so that I made this video exhausted with next to no sleep, because it is so important. And as you can see, he talks like a normal person. He's straight with you, very concise. If you want an understanding of what the ONA in the UK is like, he has essentially laid it out better than I ever could. Anyway, I think this is a very good and amazing thing to ponder on, and I appreciate your input greatly. And I recommend Nameless Therin's chants for understanding and for help within ritual work, and also he is a very talented musician and composer and singer who I have not given enough credit for. Also, thank you for the compliment regarding my music and guitar, which is all I've ever wanted to do. But you know, you get good at certain things and then, you know, you have to focus on it, but it will always be there. Without the ONA, I would have left this where it was for 10 years, because I was so depressed playing guitar until Richard Malt came into my life, essentially, till the ONA, and that brought music back to me. Anyway, this is Interzone Analysis, and that was Nameless Therein, and I appreciate your input greatly. Thank you all for watching. I have a lot of content coming very soon, and take his words to heed. Take care, IA.